it is cold and it's raining. I hope and pray that you, in contrast to me, are in warm, dry surroundings, that you can shelter somewhere which will give you protection from the weather and is a place of safety in which you can live, work, relax and enjoy. People have always searched for shelter. In the Bible, there are stories of people searching for shelter. For example, 3 travellers found rest in Abraham and Sarah's tent. Ruth left her homeland and found protection in Boaz's barn. And at Christmas, we remember that Mary and Joseph found a temporary home in a stable. There are Bible accounts of people being on the move, often forcibly moved from their homeland by occupying foreign powers. Sadly, this is still a reality for many people today. So what can we learn from our ancient ancestors? Well, we can read in the Bible that they trusted God would be with them in their search for shelter, and they also learn how to offer help and support each other. What are you waiting for? To warm up and dry out. When my daughters were very young, they loved the adventure of camping holidays. My family camped on a cliff top near St David's in Pembrokeshire. We'd had a fab holiday. We'd watched the seals in the bay, we'd played on the beach and we'd walked on the cliff top. The weather was perfect, warm and sunny every day. On the last night of our holiday, we went to sleep contented and happy. But in the middle of the night, we woke up to the sound of howling winds. The tent was flapping and there was a dreadful creaking noise. As I opened my eyes, I'd realised that the tent ceiling was falling in on my face, with water dripping on me. My husband yelled above the noise, "Quick, get the girls and anything you can save and get into the car." We spent the rest of the night in the car as the rain poured down and the wind howled during the storm. When we surveyed the damage the next morning, we realised our tent was broken because the wind had sheared the tent poles. Our clothes were wet and all we wanted to do was warm up and dry out. In the beautiful passage from John's Gospel, God is described like this: "The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighbourhood." Many families found emergency shelter in the campsite office, and we shared stories about how we'd lost our tents and the problems we'd face because our possessions were damaged. As we waited and worked out what to do next, the campsite team and locals gave us hot chocolate and blankets. In our time of need, I saw signs of God at work in the neighbourhood through the hospitality given to us by strangers. Losing my shelter and possessions in the storm was just one scary night in my life, but I had the luxury of knowing I had a permanent home to return to. Camping was something I chose to do with my family as a leisure activity. However, for many people in refugee camps, living under canvas is a daily reality, no matter what the weather is like. What are you waiting for? To be safe. Leaving home, leaving the neighbourhood, and leaving a country of birth is a difficult thing. Leaving the security of a permanent shelter and only being able to carry limited possessions with you is a very difficult thing. Moving into a new neighbourhood is frightening, especially when you are met with local hostility. So why do people do it? War, famine, and fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion drive people to seek protection in a new country. The Refugee Council, estimate there are 29.6 million refugees forcibly displaced across the world, and 1% find a home in the UK. Refugees are vulnerable, in danger of exploitation, and often anxious about their loved ones whom they've left behind. Refugees may feel ignored and forgotten. They suffer from governments' harsh policies on asylum. To not be noticed and treated inhumanely is degrading. Thankfully, there are organisations such as the Red Cross who support refugees in their process, which is often complicated, to find permanent shelter. Emergency rations are provided in refugee camps, and in the UK, help is given in advice centres. Linda, who volunteers at the Luton Advice Centre, told me they have caseworkers to support people seeking asylum, translators, and offer family tracing of loved ones left behind in home countries. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighbourhood. Through work of organisations such as the Red Cross, I see again God at work in the neighbourhood, alongside people in their deepest need to find refuge and protection. I am thankful that people do notice, do care, and do act. They work hard to help people find the most basic of human needs, shelter, which gives people dignity and helps them to live well. What are you waiting for? To make a home. A home is more than a place where we can dry out if we've got wet through during a storm. A home is more than emergency protection in a search for a permanent shelter. A home is a place where life happens, a place where we can live, laugh and love. A home can be the place we can truly relax and be ourselves. A home is a place to nurture families. A home is a place we can put down roots and feel settled. At Christmas, we remember and share the story of how Mary and Joseph left their home in Nazareth, and they travelled approximately 75 miles to Bethlehem for the census count. They had no choice because they had to comply with Roman government policy. When they arrived at the crowded Bethlehem, it was difficult to find shelter. Imagine the desperation Joseph must have felt as he tried to find shelter for himself, Mary, and her child who was about to be born. Imagine his relief at finding some shelter at last. Yes, it was temporary. Yes, it was shared with animals, but at least it offered some protection. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighbourhood. Jesus was born in less than ideal surroundings, and many in the world didn't even notice God's arrival. But for those who did, it transformed them. Angels sang, shepherds hurried down to Bethlehem, and wise men travelled a long way to meet him. In the stable, something wonderful happened. As the shelter became more than just protection from the weather, it became the place where Jesus, where God was at home. Even though it was temporary, it became a place of welcome for the guests who visited. What are you waiting for? To find love. Whatever shelter, whatever home you are in, being noticed by other people matters. It matters that we are all seen as human beings of worth, no matter what surroundings we live in, whether our home is luxurious or our home is makeshift. Love can transform life, our homes, and make an impact on us and the guests that we welcome, whether they are in person or online. John, in his Gospel, tried to describe the joy and wonder and amazement experienced when people met Jesus. What came into existence was life, and the life was light to live by. The life light blazed out of the darkness. The darkness couldn't put it out. We saw the glory with our own eyes, the one-of-a-kind glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish. What amazing words. Life, light, glory, generous, true, to describe God, who has amazing love for all of us. The invitation is for us to notice God and believe. To believe in God who offers peace for our souls. To believe in God who longs to be part of our lives. To believe in God who longs to be a loving presence in our homes, wherever they are. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighbourhood. God is with us. So this Christmas, will you take some time and in your imagination go to a temporary shelter, to the stable in Bethlehem? Will you gaze at the newborn baby Jesus? Will you imagine him looking back at you with eyes of love? Will you let God's love melt your heart and heal your hurt? And as you return from the stable in your imagination to the reality of your daily life, to your shelter, to your home, may God's love sustain you, give you peace, give you joy today and this Christmas. Amen.